Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And today I have with me a beautiful soul sister, Sally Mahamdeh.
Mahamdeh.
Mahamdeh. I apologize. I'm just going to read a brief bio. She is an emotional intelligence coach who, after years of working in the tech world, upended your life to follow your passion to create meaningful things with your life that helps you shift from part to full-time coaching. And that's provided great transformations and clarity for yourself, and then you bring that for your clients. And I love that, because like when we have that burnout, which is the telltale sign, adrenal fatigue or whatever you want to call it, it's a call to go within, because we know we're not following our soul's path. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about like that journey of the awareness of like, oh, wait a minute, I am not doing what my soul purpose is. So
I um I love that you laughed when you said that because that's exactly how it feels. You just wake up one morning and you think, I'm not sure this is it. When I was young, I used to love a song. I think I was 14 or something. Her name was Stacey Orico, and the song's title was There's Gotta Be More to Life. I used to love that song. And the year I had my burnout, for some reason, I just pulled that song on Spotify and I started listening to it. And I remember asking myself that question. I started with, what am I doing here? Because I was just going, from back-to-back meetings. And I remember after a long day, I just asked myself, what am I doing here? Just taking calls and meetings, and we're talking forecasts. And then I remember asking myself, what else could I be doing? Where else could I be? And I remember just, the third question was Stacey's song, There's Gotta Be More to Life. I just can't tell. And I find the challenge when you're having such a burnout, so a misalignment burnout, as I call it, and as some psychologists are calling it after COVID, most people would not understand. So they would either assume that you're having a challenge managing, a specific workload, so at home or at work. Some people would think that you're just exhausted and you need rest. It could be many things. It could be all of those things. But when it comes to misalignment burnout, it really is about you being in a space and just not being able to make any sense of that space and of the way you're investing in that space. And for me, at least, it felt like I was losing my light. Most people, when I talk to them about my burnout, they say, but you were doing great. And it's true. I mean, I was productive, I was performant, I was working, but I was not happy. And I insist, when I talk about my burnout now, I really insist on bringing up those topics, because some people could be burning out and you wouldn't tell. You just think, they're tired or exhausted. And if they're really having that conflict of misalignment, because they're producing, because they're performant, because they're doing, they're getting stuff done, you just assume it's all right, right? Just have some rest and everything will be fine. And you have the rest, and you still, keep hearing that question and the song on repeat. And then you realize, okay, I can rest. It's not about just like a weekend off or a week off. I think I need a little bit more. And that little bit of more is just, really, really facing that harsh truth that you cannot make sense of how you're spending your time and how you're spending your energy.
yeah.
And only when you acknowledge that, this is why I laughed when you said awareness. Only when you acknowledge that, you can actually start asking the right questions. Open questions, questions that allow for possibilities and imagination. Before then, you're just stuck and you're like, what am I doing here? And that's a closed question. So the answers are not so many of them.
Right.
And yeah, it's a very tricky space. I am very grateful to be able to say today that I am actually happy I went through that, really dark phase, where I was asking myself all of these questions, just having a few songs on repeat. It's not a fun space, but it's
Right.
needed. It's really needed because that's how you get the awareness. And
Mm,
then you can ask yourself the right questions.
yeah. I completely hear that because I have no, I knew when I was 10 that I was going to be a doctor. I didn't want
Wow.
to cut anyone open. So I decided
Mm.
to get a PhD in history because I wasn't going to cut anyone open, but I also was connected with animals from a very, very young age. And now, for the past 4 years, I'm actually doing what my soul loves. But I had to go through this journey of trying to figure that out because I was listening to what other people expected of me versus what I wanted. And it's a whole journey of unwinding all of those programs to
Yeah.
listen to what's in here.
Yeah, wow. That's so powerful. When I was young, I remember I was every time someone asked, what do you want to do later? I remember there was a, a f- a period of time where I replied, I want to be a writer. And then people would respond, but that's not a job. It's not a job, like it's not something you can live by, like it's a hobby or something. And then I remember thinking I want to be a doctor, but both my parents were doctors and I grew up in the Middle East in Palestine, and so it was really, really tough. They were working super hard,
Yeah.
and I remember thinking they have a tough life. I don't want a tough life, like not like that. And then I changed my mind again. And then I said, well, I'm going to study history. And I was like constantly changing my mind because I was in a specific limited world. And I was just trying to find something that would fit in that word.
Mhm.
And we're talking like 2001, 2003.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, my biggest learning, and I tell this to all of my friends, clients who are parents, we should not limit our children by the reality of the world they're living in. We are, a species that were meant to evolve.
Mhm.
So whatever I was thinking back then, I was only thinking it because of the reality that I had. And my reality was really, really limited. But
Yeah.
I look at myself today. I'm 36, and I live in France. I live in Europe, and I have, studied most of my coaching-related degrees. I've done them in the US. I mean, who could have ever dreamed of that? Not me, not the 14-year-old me. That for sure. And so now I'm kind of, insisting on that point, and I'm just not insisting on much anymore because life is full of surprises. But I keep on telling people we are always limited by the reality that we have, and
Mhm.
that reality is really something that is meant to evolve. Whatever reality we're living in right now, both of us, I mean, that's gonna evolve in a year, in two, in three, and four. You don't even know where we will end, right?
Right.
And so now I really, when I speak to a nephew, to a niece, or if a friend has a child or a teenager, I'm always insisting you're only making decisions for now because
Mhm.
you don't know what the future holds, and you
Right.
don't even know what it's going to look like. So it's
Right.
only one step at a time. I'm taking a decision one step at a time. But when we were
Oh,
younger, that was so much harder.
I love that because I didn't have the same context as you. I grew up in Connecticut, not Palestine, but I grew up with teachers. And
Mm.
so it was like, this is the path you're taking. And I get it. I'm grateful for the experiences, but that wasn't my heart's calling.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't have known that at 14.
yeah, me neither.
So, yeah, it's just like this gift of letting us explore life to find out what resonates and what doesn't. And that's,
Absolutely.
we don't know what the next step is. I didn't know when I was I did sound preservation at the Maine Folklife Center. So I learned how to interview by listening to interviews. And then I was a radio announcer for 2 years. And I didn't know that any of that would become this.
Yeah.
Didn't know. But the source always guides us. And even if we think we take a wrong turn in some way, it's going to lead to this unfolding that we can't predict.
I love that word, unfolding.
Mhm.
Honestly, I feel like most people come to coaching because they want to find peace.
Mm.
And I feel like the only way to find peace is by acknowledging that we are only unfolding.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, there's nothing else that we can control or have authority over. We're just unfolding.
Yeah.
And, we it's like a dance. We unfold, we give a reaction, we unfold some more, we give another reaction, and that's it, right? And life is just full of surprises. I mean, who knows when I mean, we're meant to change, we're meant to evolve, and life is also evolving. It's all just a constant dynamic of things.
Mhm.
So who knows? This is why I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves, and I did that for 30 years of my life. I just felt like I needed to find the answers. And I was
Mhm.
so obsessed with finding answers. And again, when I burned out, I also burned out because I was so obsessed with finding answers. And we just love easy solutions. I
Yeah.
wanted one sentence, like just one sentence, something clear, my brain wanted to process so that
Mhm.
we could get it over with. And
Right.
now I'm acknowledging that it's never one answer, it's never one sentence, and it could change at any moment.
Yeah.
It could change at any moment. And I'm really sharing that and practicing that with my clients that we're only finding the answers for now. We're
Mhm.
only taking the decisions for now. You don't need to have it all figured out. You're kind of ruining the game for yourself
Ah,
because it's fun that you're unfolding as things come. If you want to
yes.
unfold all of it, then where's the fun? And that's the whole mindset. It really requires cognitive reframing because naturally the brain doesn't like any kind of
Right.
anticipation, uncertainty. We don't
Mhm.
like that. The brain doesn't like surprises. We want to know because knowing gives us a sense of control, at
Right.
least. It's like a
Right.
false sense of control. We've got it under control. We know what's going on.
Right.
And yeah, it's so hard for us to naturally let go of that and just
Oh, it
let
takes
life go.
practice. It takes practice. Like this morning, I got done with my breakfast and I came up and I was like, well, what do I, not here, but here, what do I
Mm,
want to do next? And I heard meditate. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll meditate this morning. And I meditated for an hour and I was not
wow.
planning on that, but it's what was needed at that time. And I have the gift of being able to navigate my life in such a way that I can gift myself that.
Mm,
And, even if it's 5 minutes, which is usually my meditation. So it's like if it's that, or if I get to go outside and lay on the ground for an hour after dinner, we get to make those choices to calm our parasympathetic nervous system down, and then we can hear ourselves more.
yeah,
And
I
coming
love
from,
that.
yeah.
Hear ourselves more. I love that. I
Mhm.
think we hear ourselves because we hear all the negative voices in our head,
Right.
but we confuse that with hearing ourselves.
Mhm.
And I remember one of the most surprising things I learned in my degree, we had this class about, we were studying, the brain and behavior and all of that. And then we had a whole class on gut, like gut feeling.
Oh,
What is it?
cool.
And how does, this influence behavior? And I
Mhm.
remember in that class, I was so surprised because I just never assumed that from a pure scientific perspective, we could actually find meaning to what a gut feeling is. Just, always assumed it was like a black box thing, something that we can kind of like, we all know what it means, but no
Mhm.
one actually knows what it means.
Right, right.
And in that class, we were talking about the brain and then like the stomach and then the chest area and how these three areas can really allow you to just know exactly how you're feeling,
Mhm.
about how these areas have the most developed neurological circuits. Like we were talking about these three areas being the most important areas for your body and mind to just connect and to allow you to feel things and to sense things and to kind of realize how you want to pursue with things. And I remember just sitting there and having like all these psychologists and neuroscientists, like they had these short videos and they were playing them for us. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, it's a thing. like the gut feeling, like listening, to your own voice. It's a thing, it's a real thing. And I
Yeah.
was so happy. Like I remember that feeling of happiness and thinking, okay, it makes sense now. I
Yeah.
work a lot with sensitive people, and most
Mm,
of my clients can tell you without being able to explain it. I just doesn't feel right, or I don't feel it in my gut, or I really feel like this is what I should be doing. And I love that you just said listening to myself.
mm.
Because basically, what they're trying to tell me is I'm trying to listen to myself, but my brain is not following.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. And so we spend a lot of time just explaining what alignment means and
Mhm.
how we can also separate the negative voices, which are just here as a self-defense mechanism against any potential threat that we think we're perceiving, and just
Yeah.
being fully using our senses, using our body. And because now I have that, explanation from a pure science perspective, I'm super confident about telling people this is it,
Yeah.
and you can follow this psychologist, you can follow this neuroscientist, like you can find this information if you need to. We just, let's just start incorporating this as a bit of our reality. Because for
Yeah.
the longest time, we were just like learning all of these vague things and we would believe in them. And we need now scientific evidence to understand why we just, feel something in our body and we can't explain it. It's
Our
almost
body,
like people, like they love to fall in love, right? But no one can actually explain love.
right.
I don't understand why we have such a hard time in believing in a few things. Like we just need to see them, we need to rationalize them, otherwise nothing makes sense.
I used to, when I was living with my former partner, and my intuition was getting really, really strong, I just have this inner knowing. And he'd ask me to quantify it. I'm like, I can't. I just know
Yeah.
it. And so it was constant because he's an engineer. So it was constant like, no, but I'm just following my intuition. And he's like, yeah,
Mm.
but I need to see the proof. I'm like, I can't show you the proof. I just know it.
Yeah,
And
I just
so
feel
it's
it.
back and forth between the mind and the heart.
Yeah.
And it's challenging. I'm grateful that science has caught up enough to be able to explain things. That's why I love delving into quantum physics and frequencies, because I can my left brain loves it. That's the researcher in me, loves to like understand it, but my right brain already knows it.
Yeah. 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 You I feel like we're just so scared. Again, it goes back to letting go. And we are
Mhm.
so scared of just letting go of the control. And we just need to be reassured that, this is not going to take you to a space where you're going to be totally lost, or yeah, without just a few elements that allow you, to make sense of the space. So most clients tell me, I'm here for neuroscience coaching, and always start by that.
Mhm.
But I feel like as the practice grows, we're just able to say things and
Yeah.
talk about our feelings, and, without needing to just quote or, bring up a book or whatever. I know that some of them just need that sense of um, safety at
Hmm.
first. And
Hmm.
then they start to just let go and really experience the whole experience of, just trying to live more mindfully and trying to anchor ourselves in a very intense and hectic world.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that this is just very common for, people in general or people in specific industries. I also worked in tech for a long time. And so generally that's the approach I would use with clients who are in engineering or in, technology, any kind of, I would say very science oriented industry, but also in general with men. I have a lot of male clients, and a lot of them come and say, like, oh, yeah, I heard you do coaching in neuroscience. And they always open with that angle. But by the end of the coaching, most of the time we talk about fulfilling, our own prophecies. And I
Hmm.
love that. I love that, we're slowly letting go, and we're just being, and we're just experiencing things, and we're being vulnerable and okay, by not being in control, by not being able to explain and rationalize everything. We're emotional beings. As much as we'd love to be rational beings, we are not. We are emotional beings. And,
Right.
we just need to make peace with that truth. And once we do, I feel like it's just easier to move forward and experience change and even personal transformation. It
Mhm.
just starts by acknowledging that.
Yeah. I love that because, in my own experience, I was very, very good at numbing myself out from feeling my feelings for a very long time. And about 4 years ago, I started doing somatic work. And even though I was able to feel my feelings, the somatic work really opened me up to actually seeing how much energy was trapped in my body that I didn't even know.
Yeah,
So, like, what's really interesting is in the past couple days when I meditated, I'm hearing my teeth like it's like my jaw is at a space where it's like, okay, and I hear my teeth like making this weird noise while I'm meditating. I don't even know what my mouth is doing, but it's like I feel a relaxation
mm,
because I've been doing this very consistently for myself.
yeah,
And our bodies carry so much wisdom within them. It's remarkable, because we're not taught that. We're not taught to pay attention to, I'll give an example, here, like
yeah,
right here, right.
yeah,
This is a point in the kidneys. If you
yeah,
massage it, you calm down. You can just calm yourself down. Simple thing to learn,
yeah,
but we're not taught that. I mean, we have to go to an energy practitioner to be able to learn about our bodies because we're not taught that in school. And this is me, that's one of the most important things we could learn. More important than geometry or English or French literature is to learn ourselves and how to connect with ourselves. And so it's an opportunity for us to stop paying attention to all of the outside and come
yeah,
within. And that's hard. It's a hard step to take because we're so conditioned.
absolutely. It's unnatural for us. I think I was talking with my dad once, and I think it was 5 years ago. I had just started my emotional intelligence practice.
Mhm.
And I told him, we're doing all these exercises, we're practicing mindfulness. Remember that day it was a body scan. And I told my dad it was so strange. I was, I was asked to do a body scan, and only the moment I did it, I had realized how much tension I had in my face and in my neck.
Mhm.
And I was telling my dad, it was almost like I was, driving a car and just like using all the options, like autopilot, all the buttons. I had clicked on all of the buttons, and someone told me, Sally, we're just gonna turn off the whole like automation, and now you're gonna drive manually. And me and my dad, we laughed about that because that's exactly how it felt for me. The first time that someone ever asked me to just see how I was feeling in my body, I
Mhm.
really felt like, my brain was just every morning stepping into something like a form of shape. And I was just like moving around. And by the time I would go to sleep, I'd be like, I'm tired, but I wouldn't be able to say where I was feeling pain or tension or fatigue. And I remember that first feeling, like the first feeling someone ever asked me, release the tension in in your face. I'm like, oh wow, there is tension because I was trying to release it.
Yeah.
And a lot of I remember 6 months during my first certification, I was just obsessed with that question. So I remember I was training with Daniel Goleman, Michelle Nevares, and their teams. I asked Daniel Goleman, who really has written just like 6 books about emotional intelligence, and he has really democratized it. I asked him, can we be emotionally intelligent without having a spiritual practice? And I remember him pausing and saying, I don't know. I don't think so. We really, really need the mindfulness bit. We really, really need it. We just can't live in our brains. We just need a connection back to the body. And
Mhm.
I remember that day thinking, oh my gosh, that is the bit that we are all missing.
Yeah.
Because at a purely cognitive level, I think all of us are emotionally intelligent. All of us know what would be right, what would be healthy, what would be the best way we need to react, but we're unable to show up in that way at most occasions. Why? And things seem very intense, and we just get our brains get very clouded, and we're unable to just untangle. Why? And that day I understood that we're missing that practice. We are not living in our bodies. We are kind of just, like being in them without really being in them. We're not anchored in them. We're not grounded in them. And they're
Mhm.
just like we're floating objects. Our brain is floating above something. And that's it. And that was a very big change for me. I really remember that day. The first body scan, and that day that I asked that question, got that answer. And now I feel very confident talking about mindfulness and just having a meditative practice. I
Yeah.
tell all of my clients, I know you're here for the science. This is science too. Now
Mhm.
let's talk. And I'm I'm very flexible on many things, but that's the bit that I'm really strict on. I always tell my clients, I mean, honestly, we can just talk theory for hours, but practicing is what will get you to create a really shift in your mindset. And that practice goes by you
Yeah.
pausing and listening to yourself.
Mhm.
And I know it's unnatural because no one ever taught us any of that, right?
Right.
We just know how to move our bodies from point A to point B, right? We've all been exposed to sports, to working out, all sorts of things. But as you said it so beautifully, we were never told that our bodies have wisdom, that there is much to take from our intuition. Most people will tell you, you know, just let it go
Right.
and go with the flow. So, yeah, totally unnatural, but can absolutely become natural with training. And it is
Well,
so worth the training. It is so important. It's a very important bit of the practice.
and it just came through. You said go with the flow. There's a difference between go with the flow and be in the flow.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That just came through. I'm like, that's so true because
Yeah.
like when I'm in flow and when I'm being in flow, it's very easy.
Yeah.
When I'm going with the flow, it means that I'm not necessarily, I might have resistance
Yeah.
within me and I'm
Yeah.
not paying attention to what I need.
I
And
love that.
yeah, so it's an interesting reframe. And I know for me, one of the practices that I can't get out of right now, and I love it, is after dinner, I literally go, and we don't have a nice lawn, but I lay out, I find the green spot and I just lay on it for an hour and it
Mm.
helps my sleep because my body's syncing up with Mama Gaia. And yesterday I had this really cool awareness because I'm very, like many people, we all are very sensitive, but I'm in tune. And my friend Rob was telling me about a piece of land that he used to go shooting, gun shooting. And I tuned into the land and I felt her sorrow from being forested for 150 years. I've never felt that before, but it's because
Yeah.
I'm connecting with Gaia that I'm now in tune with her frequency so I can feel it. And it's just a matter, it really, it's not even a practice. I love doing it because it just calms everything down. But a side benefit of it is that now I'm in tune with what she needs. And not from a place of like, I have to save her because I'm not saving her, but just holding space for that energy because everything is energy, right? Everything is.
Absolutely.
And so as we slow down, we can tune into our intuitive gifts more and more. And then we realize how amazing we really are. And it all comes through the body connection.
Absolutely. Honestly, I, we talk about pausing and taking the time to listen to ourselves. Most people tell me I'm listening to myself because they're listening to the negative voices. But if you just take out that layer where you're just trying to survive,
Mhm.
then that's where the magic happens and you
Yeah.
can actually feel alive. And
Mhm.
this is, for me, the manifestation of what you're saying. Typically, if we were just trying to survive, you'd have dinner and then, you'd binge watch a show and then you just put yourself to sleep without letting your body digest or even unwind or even just slow down or even, just process everything that has happened during the day. And I used to live like that for a very, very long time. I just moved from one thing to the other without being mindful or just conscious of what has happened. And now I've moved from side hustling in coaching to coaching full time, and I'm really really trying to do this the ethical way. So I only try to lead with what I preach, and every day I just try to ask myself what actually happened today. What
Hmm.
showed up for me? Did I go through something big and did I minimize it? Or did I go through something small and did I exaggerate it? I just try to sit with myself and do my check-in of the day.
Hmm.
And it has really helped me just digest and process things, because sometimes we just, I remember it was just last week, I had a conflict with the provider. I had something to clarify with the prospect. I had the client who was really having a very, very bad week and very bad day, and he needed support. So all of these things were happening, and I really tried to show up with kindness and try to take every of those challenges as a leadership opportunity. But I remember by Thursday, I just woke up in the morning and I thought, wow, Sally, this was a very intense week. You just deserve to go for a nice walk. You
Hmm.
deserve to treat yourself to a warm drink, and you deserve to just clear out all of this accumulation of energy and efforts and recharge. And
Hmm.
first, I did it for myself, and then I did it because I had clients that afternoon, and I really wanted to show up as my best self. And now I know that by accumulating and just moving from one point to the other, I will not be able to offer this to my clients. I will not be able to offer it to myself. I'll not be able to offer it to my daughter, to my partner, to my family, and I care about all of these people. But before, I was just moving from point A to point B, point A to point B, and then to
Right.
sleep, of course, without giving my
Right.
body or my brain time to unwind.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, I mean, I had insomnia until I was 28. My weight was always fluctuating. Someone asked me just literally a month ago. I wore a dress, and the person who is one of my oldest friends here in France said, "Did you not have this dress like 10 years ago?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And she said, "Oh, you've been on a diet." And I said, "Actually, no." And she said,
Mhm.
"Oh, come on." And I said, "You know what? I've been practicing mindful eating for 5 years." And she was like, "What is that?" And I'm like, I just eat when I'm hungry. And if I ever snack, I pause and I ask myself, what is going on for me? What is showing up for me? I'm stressed, I'm sad, I'm tired. I know I snack my emotions. I know I drink my emotions. I know that's how we process, because no one taught us how to do otherwise.
Mhm.
And I remember my friend just, pausing for like 5 minutes. And she's like, that should be like a name of a diet. I'm like, but it's not. It's not a diet. It's a way of living. I'm not depriving myself from anything. I'm literally having everything. I'm just
Mhm.
trying to check in and see, am I eating my emotions, or am I
Right.
really eating?
Right.
And that's a big, big difference.
Oh, I do that all the time. I tend to eat a very steady diet of breakfast, and then I eat 2 meals a day. So my dinner is usually a salad, and I put plant proteins in, and it's all great. And yesterday I went down. I'm like, do I want the salad? And I heard, uh-uh. I'm like, do I
Mm,
want vegetables? Uh-huh. So I just cut myself up a whole bunch of summer vegetables and snacked on that, and that was my dinner.
yeah,
That made my body happy. It was just like, I'm done with the salad for the night. Like, for the week, can I stop eating salad and just eat this instead? I'm like, of course, whatever you need, I'm happy to provide to you. You just need to let me know what it is.
yeah,
So it's really interesting to navigate life that way, because we tend to really only eat what we need.
yeah, absolutely. And again, totally unnatural.
Hmm.
Because remember when we were kids, um, I mean, I know that's not how we were. Even at school, like whatever we did, it was never about connecting in, checking in, being in tune. It was always about just following a lead. I um I have a daughter now, and she's 3.5. And every time I serve her food and she says, I'm not hungry, I pause, because as a parent, I just want to respond, no, you need to eat, time, now is lunchtime or dinner time or whatever time. And I pause and I ask, are you really not hungry? Because for the next 3 or 4 hours, we're not going to have a cooked meal. And if that's fine by you, I'm fine. But
Yeah.
if you need to have just a small bite, then I think it would be good, because otherwise would be snacking, and maybe would be snacking some unhealthy stuff. Most
Right.
times she'll eat, but sometimes she'll go, I'm not hungry. And it's very hard for me and my partner to respect that, but
Yeah.
I really insist that we do,
Hmm.
because I tell him right now she has access to all of that.
Yeah.
She's able, she can tell us, I'm not hungry, I'm not sleepy.
Right.
And she really thinks those things. And so if we start pushing her, no, you need to because mom thinks that, or you need to because dad thinks that, that's how she will start, she will stop actually listening to herself. And
Yeah.
she'll just eat because it's dinner time, and she'll just eat because it's lunchtime, and and she'll have coffee because everyone has coffee in the morning. But the real question is, what do you actually want?
Right.
And most times we don't give that luxury to ourselves. We don't ask ourselves, what do you actually want? And I
Right.
know it might sound silly, but I keep on insisting, we can only practice change in small steps. So if you start by asking yourself, do I actually want coffee or tea, or do I want coffee or tea or nothing? Do I want to have lunch or do intermittent fasting? Whatever that sounds like, whatever that looks like, if you do these small steps of checking in, then
Yeah.
you'll be able to do the big check-ins. You'll
Mhm.
actually be able to ask yourself, how do I feel about this job? How do I feel about this coworker? How do I feel about this friendship? You'll be able to ask yourself those questions because of the permission.
Mm-hmm.
You'd give yourself permission for the small things, then it will be easier to give yourself permission for the big things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really feel like it's a practice. It's a
Yeah.
practice, and
This is
again, unnatural.
right.
Unnatural, but can become
Everything is
natural
a
with
practice.
practice.
It's like we have this belief system that practice is hard or practice is bad, but like
Yeah,
it's just bringing awareness into how you're showing up for yourself on a daily basis.
absolutely.
Like I
Absolutely.
used to be a news junkie.
Me too.
I did. I was an historian, so I love following the news. Then
Yeah.
I realized that it was getting me stressed, and then I caught it on different levels because it's like a pattern, it's a behavior. But I'm like, does it really make me feel good? Like, what do I do in my evenings that's making me feel good?
Yeah.
Is it sitting in front of my laptop and watching YouTube videos? No, it's not. That makes me feel icky. It makes me have a horrible night of sleep. Just laying out on the ground for an hour make me feel good? Yep. Well, let's do that instead. And I'm not, I mean, me personally, I absolutely love it. So I like talking about it, but like whatever it is that's bringing, is it like an audiobook that's going to help you expand your consciousness? Is it something that's quilting or doing a puzzle, whatever it is that you remember as even as a kid that you love doing, that you stop doing for some reason, ask yourself if you miss it. Ask yourself if you would like to do that again and bring yourself back to that innocence because those are great ways of like pausing.
I love that you use the word innocence. Um, I love that word.
I
I
do too.
have 5 clients who graduated their 3-month foundations training.
Mhm.
And when I asked each of them um, to create a mantra for themselves, or to choose a word or a metaphor, anything that can allow their brain to revisit the moments of coaching we've had together, the 5, I mean, they don't know each other. They come from different industries, different jobs. They're just totally different people, chose that word. And I
Really?
love that word because um, I'm just convinced that we come to this life with a lot of answers,
Mhm.
and very slowly we kind of lose the light because we try so hard to fit in.
Yeah.
And the systems, I mean, at least the way they're built right now, they're more oppressing than encouraging or supporting to be curious and to try.
Mhm.
And then we just grow and keep growing and grow and keep growing, and we put on all these shields to protect ourselves from criticism or what we can perceive as failure. And all of these things happen, and then there's just one point in life where you just don't even know what you think or what you like anymore. And for me, for example, I remember as I tried to deepen my practice, there were a few periods in the last 5 to 6 years that I was really challenged. And you know what happened every time? Every time, different periods, different challenges. I would go back to survival mode. Survival mode meaning just moving from point A to point B without any kind of connection, any kind of awareness of what's happening to me. For example, when situation got really ugly in the Middle East starting October, I went back to watching the news, and I had really stopped. I had stopped for a very, very long time. I was more focused on supporting NGOs and following their work. And all of a sudden, I found myself just totally re-emerged back into that word. And so the first 3 months, I remember I looked at my phone and I was on my phone 7 hours a day, which is huge for me. I'm generally on my phone 45 minutes a day.
Oh, wow.
That's really like between 45 and 1 hour. That's the maximum. And 15 minutes of that is WhatsApp. I'm just checking on maybe family members or friends. And I remember like just trying to be okay and nothing was working. I was unable to meditate. I was unable to pause. Nothing was working. And
Yeah.
remember one morning, I was looking at the date and I was thinking, oh, it's the 1st of January. Oh, it's my daughter's birthday. Oh, I had totally
Oh,
disconnected from myself, totally disconnected from time. I was driving myself crazy. And it was because I cared, I cared so much. I was so devastated by what was going on.
oh
But
yeah.
only then I realized, but I have a healthy child. I am so grateful for that. I know how precious that is. And I
Mm.
have that healthy child, and tomorrow she's going to turn 3, and I was going to miss on that date. Like that's how disconnected I am.
Wow.
And since then, I have been very, very, very vigilant of how I use my phone and how I'm using my devices because and it's horrible, but things are going on and it's
Yeah.
been going on forever, right? And I now I talk openly about that. I talk a lot about that on LinkedIn, and I tell people that for people like us, when we're sensitive and we care, I mean, I care about a tree. The other day they cut a really ancient tree in my neighborhood and I was so mad. They
Yeah.
just cut that tree to like really just put something silly and unnecessary, and me and my neighbors, we were mad. So
Oh
if
yeah.
we can be touched by that, like that
Yeah.
level of disrespect for nature. How can you feel about children being disrespected, or how can you feel about human beings being disrespected? And so I was thinking about that because a lot of people are now coming to coaching and saying, I don't know like how to disconnect because the world is a very, very ugly place right now. We see a lot of racism, we see a lot of extremism. If you look at the news, and most of us do, you just totally feel out of tune. You
Yeah.
just disconnect from yourself. You feel hopeless. You feel helpless.
Oh yeah.
And I'm telling my clients, I don't think we can actually disconnect because most of us are sensitive. I mean, I only work with sensitive people. So we are passionate. Each
Right.
client comes with a cause they're passionate about, and that's what I love about them and working with them. So I say disconnecting, that could harm us, but also being overconnected, that could kill us. So we
Hmm.
have those two ugly choices. And for me, the peace is in the middle. So
Hmm.
we connect, but we also take care of ourselves. And I mean, it's hard for me to say this because I'm struggling to apply it myself, but I have stopped watching the news every night before going to sleep, and I have stopped watching them every morning before I go to, just work and taking my clients. And so the other day someone told me, so you're not watching the news? I say, no, actually I do. I check in every 3 to 4 days. I don't do more, I don't do less. And
Right.
when I do, I'm prepared. I'm
Yep.
prepared because I know that whatever I'm going to see is going to be hard. There's no fun. And I'm very intentional that I watch the general news, but then I also look very intentionally for people who are fighting for peace, for equal rights. And I'm very intentional. I'm very intentional, Sophia, because my brain needs that. I
Right.
cannot just let it see the horrors that, media and politicians want me to see. That will
Right.
kill my sensitive soul.
Right.
So I go and I look for demonstrations. I go and I look for people from the other side who are actually, fighting for my country, for our rights. And that makes me feel good. I need to send my brain those signs that
Yeah.
the world is a good place,
Yeah.
that there are great people out there. And whatever, narrowed vision someone is trying to push into my brain is, I'm not going to take it. It's
Yeah.
not welcome. And that's the only way I have found so far to keep myself sane.
No,
Because
that makes sense
I,
because having that balance, like having that middle way, and like really, I have some awareness of what's going on in the world. Um, and when I see myself starting to get really interested in it, I literally pull myself back and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna go meditate now. I'm gonna journal. I'm gonna do something that's not focused on that because I see the tendency.
yeah,
So it's a very mindful practice of
yeah.
allowing yourself to see where your capacity is.
Absolutely, absolutely. You would not hear me use the word limits a lot, but that's one of the very rare areas I use the word limits.
Yeah.
But by limits, I don't mean that I'm not strong enough or I'm not, brave enough. I tell my clients, scrolling on social media or watching the news does not say anything about my courage and about my bravery. Doing something that would have an actual impact on people's lives, that would say a lot about me being a courageous and brave. And I know that I know that, for example, in France, we had the elections, and there was a lot of pressure. And I would see on LinkedIn people posting things like, if you don't care, you're a racist. If you don't do it, you're that. And, I could sense the judgment. I could sense the fear. I could sense the anger. And I remember one of my friends was posting such content. And one day she asked me, and she said, you should do that too. Like, you should support. And I said, well, I don't know. I just don't think we can inspire anyone from that space of anger and judgment.
Hmm.
I don't want to push someone and corner them into understanding, what's going on in this country or that country. I
Hmm.
just, if we trust people and we just give them information, we just give them things that can actually touch their heart, I think that's more than enough.
Oh
And if
yeah.
for some reason they're unable to connect with that, then I think that right now there's so much darkness in their heart. I don't think anger will fix it. I don't think anger will
Right.
make them all of a sudden care. I know it's a very tricky topic. I know, I get it. And we can get very, very, very emotional about those things. So for me too, I watch the news and then I go write. I watch the news and then I go for a walk. Sometimes I go for a really good cry with a really good friend. I mean, there
Yeah.
were some really dark moments in the past 8 to 9 months, and when
Mhm.
I would feel that this is too much for me, I can't. Like, I just right now I need support.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. But in general, I would say right now we're in a space. We're very connected. We can see a lot of things. Um, Before we would read about them, now we can see them. We can see them live, and that's not easy. If people were racist before, then they would maybe be less vocal, or at least their closest circle would know. Now everything is very public. Everything is online, and so I think technology is a blessing, but I also think we need to use it um, while having in mind that we're being overexposed all of the time and that our
Right.
brains are not ready. So if we're
Right.
just sending them all of these really strong signals, that can be very, very tough.
Oh
And how do
yeah.
you process that? And how do you, just hear all of these really stressful and disturbing things going on, and you just want your mind to shut down and go to sleep? How
Right.
is that supposed to work?
Not
Like,
well. Not well.
not
I mean,
well at all.
it's such a hard thing to balance because, we're compassionate, but what I have learned in my own practice is the more I work on myself, the more I'm helping the collective.
Yeah.
And that's a hard concept because, my
Yeah.
tendency is to want to, do the thing, and there's nothing wrong with doing the thing, whatever that thing is, if it's to help another person in any way, shape, or form. And to also know that our beingness, and when we connect with the light that we are, we can affect change too. It's a heady concept, but it actually works. um, because that's how powerful we are. Like, and where we choose to bring our attention, it's disconnecting us from that darkness,
Absolutely.
because that's part of why we're drawn to it. That's why all of the news is about negativity and like what drug is da da da, whatever the thing is, it's designed to keep us in that fight or flight state.
Absolutely.
And when we pull ourselves away from that, we're not playing that game and we're able to shift things on the world.
Absolutely. I love what you said about taking care of ourselves to be able to impact the collective. That is so, so true. For me, one of the things that actually really allowed me to resume my practice was a discussion I had with one of my coaches. His name is Shirzad Shamin, and he founded a foundation called Positive Intelligence. And so we were taking a program, and I told him, I'm sorry, I don't think I can do this right now. Just the word positive really disturbs me with everything going on. And he paused and he said, what's your aspiration? What do you want to do in this world? And I said, I'm a I just want to be a good citizen. I want to serve and I want to help people with their mental health.
Mhm.
And so he paused and he said, are you doing any of that right now? And I cried and I
Mm,
said, I'm not. And he said, do you want to get back to doing that? And I said, yeah, more than anything in the world.
mhm.
And so he said, that's why I need you to resume your practice. I need
Mm,
you to go for that walk. I need you to take that pen and paper and write. You really need to. That's
yeah.
the only way you can
Mhm.
go back to practicing and making that happen. That's the only way.
Yeah.
And I just had that thought in my mind. And the next day I thought about it, but I didn't do anything. And then another day came, I thought about it, didn't do anything. And then the third day I did.
Okay.
I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done just spending 7 hours on my phone, totally freaking out, feeling super anxious. I'm done. This is it. This is me really trying to do whatever I can to be okay. And after that, I remember when my friends would ask, how are you doing? I would reply, I'm doing everything I can to be okay.
Yeah.
And when my clients now are showing up to the sessions and they ask, how are you doing? I say, well, I'm doing my best to be okay. And
Mhm.
at first, it was really an effort.
Yeah.
But now I actually really feel like it's working. It's not an effort. It's not, me trying to fake something or push something into my brain. I just wake up in the morning and I say, what can I do today to make today a good day? And what can I do today to allow myself to serve? Because that's the only thing I care about, being a good citizen, serving, and taking care of people's mental health. And it really goes back to that question.
Mhm.
What's our aspiration? And is taking care of ourselves a way to achieve it, or is it not? And most times the answer will be yes, yes, and yes. And
Mhm.
I know it's hard because in that moment we just feel like we're being egocentric. um, or even, someone told me recently, whatever I'm going through seems silly compared to everything that their community is going through. And I told them, I hear the pain. I
Mm,
hear that you would like to be with them in that space of pain, but you and me, we are here, we are safe, and in that sense, we can be grateful. And now the question is, what do we do with that?
yeah.
What are the things that we can achieve from this safe space that our communities can't because it's unsafe? And both
Right.
of us had an aha moment because none of us had considered that angle, that it's not bad that we're outside of that space. It
Mhm.
might be actually a good thing. We might be able to serve our communities even better. We might be able to do even better work. For
Mhm.
me personally, I started using my coaching to generate donations to NGOs that are serving in the Middle East. Like that's how I was actually able to convert my work into something good. And
Mhm.
that felt so much better than just being on that couch and just freaking out and scrolling
Yeah.
on the phone. And for my friend, they're doing the same thing. Um, they were just really horrified by a few events that happened in the US and that touch on the Black Lives community. And then next thing I know, my friend is trying to organize a charity event. And with that event, they're supporting a local community. And that's so beautiful
Yeah.
because, both of us were just in shock and in anger, and we would just sit and feel so hopeless and helpless. And you called it a dark space. That's the best way to call it. It really is a dark space out there. If you just go back to that space, there's really not much you can do except
Right.
just experience really deep sadness. And I'm all for feeling all the feelings,
Yeah.
but I'm always talking about having them just go through us
Mhm.
and not, get us stuck. And I remember the first 4 months, I mean, I was really feeling stuck. So we cannot change how things show up in the world. I mean, I would be the first one to hope to have like, just a
Yeah.
magical power, superpower that would make the world just safer for children. And, you know, but I don't have that power. So I'll do everything else that I have.
Mhm. Mm. Mhm. Mm. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. and we have had a beautiful, amazing, deep
Mm.
conversation, my sister. I'm so grateful for you.
I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for giving me this space.
You're welcome. And I'm going to ask you that one final question, and that is, how do people find you?
Oh, yes. Okay. How can they find me? Three ways. LinkedIn. I mean, I spent 13 years in tech, so I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. But I'm also working on Instagram, getting an Instagram account all and up to date, and my website. So the website is hayati.co, hayatti.co. And Hayati means my life in Arabic. It's a way of it's an expression of ownership. It's when you're
Mm-hmm.
saying this is my own. And I love that word. So these are the three best ways to find me. Just type my name on Google or type the company's name on Google, LinkedIn or Instagram, and I'd be more than happy to connect.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your work in the world, for your beingness, and for the light you share.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you for offering me this space and for this beautiful conversation. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, my dear.